Hi, Mary Baxter here, and I am recording this video to cover troubleshooting when it comes to pendulum dowsing and muscle testing. So in all of the people that I have taught and people have come to webinars and in-person classes in studios and so forth, similar things come up. We have certain issues when it comes to developing that confidence in pendulum dowsing and muscle testing. And then there's some technical things. So you have the book, Getting Started with Your Pendulum. You also have access to the video course that's a complement to it. And we cover much of this in those contexts. But today, what I really want to look at is, oh my goodness, this isn't working. What am I going to do? And the kinds of things that come up. So, number one issue with pendulum dowsing is my pendulum will not move. What is that about? I cleansed it when I got it. I trained it in the methods, making it move and so forth. But then as soon as I come into asking a question or making a statement and, wanting to see some action, receive some intuitive connection and inner wisdom guidance, I get this instead of a yes. Instead of a no, there's nothing happening. I've even had people tell me that when they ask a question, this happens, but when they are not asking a question, then, there's all kinds of movement. So what is going on there? So let's go over a few basic steps. Now, when it comes to cleansing and blessing your pendulum, which is very well covered in your classroom spaces, you don't just do that one time necessarily. It may be something, I do it very often. You can wash your pendulum again. You can think of it like, oh, sticky energy, it's not moving when, I'm in the process. And then you can also, you could put it in dirt of a plant. Pendulums, especially if they're crystals, really like plants and they like nature. You can put it in the moonlight or sunlight for a while. If your pendulum is just metals like brass or made of wood, something that is not a gemstone, you can always wash and always put in moonlight or sunlight for a while. Say the blessing. Giving your pendulum that creative truth ray again, bringing it to your heart, bringing it to your brow chakra to go through that process again. Someone else may have used your pendulum, picked it up, was curious about it. Maybe there are children, that are curious and so forth. You don't have to know the reason, but just like in our lives, we don't take one shower. We maybe shower every day. We don't just wash our hands once or our dishes once. We use them and we clean them. So look at your pendulum in the same way. If it is not moving, step one, cleanse, bless again. Then, as far as the training goes, where, we're working with this, we have clockwise, this is a yes, counterclockwise, this is a no, and we can do that again. Why not? This is a yes. This is a no. This is start over. This is maybe, yes or no. I need to hone my question. Train again. And that is especially effective if you are not getting movement, to train again. And when you're making statements like, make a bigger circle. I want to see a 4-inch in diameter circle or line. I want to see rapid movement. And you're not saying it so much much to your pendulum as you are through the system that is making it move. So there's that, retraining. Then a step back is actually, how are you holding your pendulum? One of the most, you see it everywhere, I see it everywhere, people want to use their hand and they want a pendulum dowse over their hand. And this is problematic because there's a lot of energy in your hand. Here is your palm chakra. Here are all of these electrical system, channels coming to the tips of your fingers, coming through your arm. This definitely is not something that you want to douse over. You don't want to douse over your hand, even if you feel strongly pulled to do so. I'll post some pictures, short video clips of my granddaughter, who's now 3, and she, oh my goodness, she loves the pendulums. She'll, spinning them. And there she is. I was just looking at some pictures. She's instinct. I'm going to do it right over my hand. For our purposes, because we're not measuring like what is the condition of my palm chakra, that would be a perfect reason to douse over your hand, because you want to know something about it, or over your lap or some part of your body. That is the information that is going to be coming to you, and it's not going to coincide with a statement, a thought, a question that you have in your mind, and that you're wanting to get some inner wisdom, guidance through your intuition with that. So don't do that. You want to douse over a clean white sheet of paper is like perfect. Or, a piece of silk. I often will douse over this particular piece because I made it for pendulum dowsing, and the symbols that are in it are specifically for that, so they're not going to interfere. Now, that's, another thing is, besides what you're dowsing over being clear, there's beautiful embroidered cloths with all kinds of astrological symbols, and they're just like really, really cool. But for our purposes, this is not what we want to be dowsing over. So something clear, even, if I just douse over my desktop here, it's clear, it's white, I can douse over that. So you have that, that you really want to keep in your mind. Then the next thing is, you've been taught through the course, through the classes and the videos, that you want to rest your elbow. So, here I am, I'm resting my elbow in order to douse, and I'm comfortable. My arm is relaxed, I'm not crunched up, I'm not tense, my wrist is flexible, I'm holding on tightly enough that I, definitely feel the chain, but at the same time, I'm not gripping it so tight that I'm choking off the energy, that white knuckle. See how white my fingertips are because I'm tense. You don't want to have tension in your neck either, right? You're just like a free flowing, coming information. You can imagine it coming in through your brow chakra, or the divine energy coming in through your crown chakra, but relaxed. Support for the elbows, but if you're going to be dowsing for a while, if it's a quick 1-2 thing, you're not going to exhaust your arm, and you don't worry about that. But just this relaxed state for the pendulum. I've noticed in some videos where I'm pendulum dowsing that the tail of my pendulum, which is over here, it can be kind of distracting in those videos, because what I'm watching is the main bob, the main plumb bob that's coming off the end of the chain through my fingers, and that's what we're really watching. So this doesn't distract me, but if it distracts you, if you have a long end, just palm it, put it in the palm of your hand and then proceed. So how you hold it makes a difference. Remember, you are not moving it on purpose when you're not training it, but nor are you trying to prevent your hand from moving, because as soon as you do that, you choke off the electricity, you choke off the energy. Your hand is going to move. And it's more a function that of the pendulum moving. And the difference here would be, if you're using a pen or pencil and you're holding on so tight that you're exhausting your arm, or getting a big dent in your finger, you need to relax if you're going to be writing for a while. So you want to be relaxed when you're pendulum dowsing. And at the same time, not holding on so loosely that you drop it, that's too relaxed. So you move yourself into a state of neutrality. We need that. I often do that with the blessing. I'll do it here. Let the Creator light emerge. May it grow and expand. I ask my guides and teachers to be present, and for truth and accuracy to be obtained in the highest good of all. Thank you. Just doing that right now really took me into a zone of peacefulness that I was not feeling previously, because I'm excited. I'm shooting a video and talking to you. But for neutrality, we really want to get into this neutral space. And so we've covered now getting into that neutral space, the relaxation, how we hold the pendulum, make sure it's clean, make sure it's blessed, that we've made it our own. If your pendulum is not moving, just go through the steps that you begin with for getting started. And, the retraining, none of this takes very long. And the only way you're going to fail and not be able to do pendulum dowsing is like anything. If you quit, it's over. You're not giving it a chance. Now, as you become proficient at pendulum dowsing, you'll have a preference. You may never want a muscle test. Or once you learn muscle testing, you may never want to pendulum dowse again. Or if you're like me, sometimes it's pendulum dowsing is the best. Sometimes muscle testing. It just depends. It took me quite a while to become comfortable with muscle testing because it was different and I was used to pendulum dowsing. But now I really am able to use them interchangeably and to feel comfortable with that. So those are, if the pendulum doesn't move, these are the things that you really want to review, going through all those steps. Neutral space, cleansing, blessing, making your own, training again, asking for what you want, bigger circles, more definite, visibility of what the answers are. And you're in control of this, because what's really controlling your pendulum is your mind. And that's why it's really important where your mind is at. And so if your mind is receptive, open to love and light and truth and an honest wanting to know what's most correct in a particular situation, you're going to be successful. If you're not in a neutral space, if you're very agitated, if you cannot accept the whole potential possibilities around a circumstance, then you're not really going to have access to what is necessarily the answer that you need to know. So this part of training the mind is very, very important. And very likely there will be circumstances that, where you're not able to become neutral. And, I run into that often enough. And so one of the best solutions for that, and to really get good at being able to pendulum dowse and muscle testing, is to deal with situations and circumstances that don't belong to you. So if you can have a friend who is involved, like your dowsing muscle testing partner, this can be so helpful, because then circumstances that you want to know about, but that trigger an anxiety in you, are not going to have the same effect on a dowsing partner, somebody else who does this with you. And so you can help each other in being neutral and getting more accurate answers. And, as you find, as we go along in working together, it's really possible to get answers to questions through someone else without even telling them what your question is. And that's pretty sophisticated trust that you will develop over time if it's something that you really want. So if you can't be neutral, find someone who can, and they can help you out. Like when I first learned pendulum dowsing and began practicing, beyond, those first training questions that did involve me and things I knew the answer to, I started reading the records. And I wasn't reading my records, though I could have, and I do now. And that's where I feel like all the information about me personally comes from, is the past, the present, and potential futures. But I began by reading for others. And it's interesting, you're looking at somebody else, you don't have as big of an investment in what the outcomes are. And so I think that really helped me to be able to, read accurately and use the pendulum and get accurate answers. It's because I had moved it outside of myself. And so this is something I really want you to think about and see what you can do, especially, from the troubleshooting aspect of I can't get, answers that I'm looking for, or I know, what I am getting isn't right. This just can't be right. So that is very useful. In fact, I just signed up for a course called Stitch Your Story. And if you know anything about me, I am a fiber artist, and in my career of fiber art, I love hand spinning, especially weaving, mostly making yarn. That's the thing for me. And then I love hand stitching. I would much rather stitch by hand than use a sewing machine. So in this course that I'm taking, and it's an online course happening over time, we're going to do portraits. Whoa, when I saw, that's what drew me in. I love faces, and I thought, yes, this is my next thing to do. Well, the beginning, your first sampling and learning the techniques for stitching a portrait, the instructor says, don't use a portrait, don't use a picture of someone that you know. So you're going to work off an image, a photograph, and it should be someone you don't know. And I thought, of course, the investment in how things have to be when it comes to say it was my face, like, whoa, how am I going to feel about that? Or my granddaughter, one of my children, or my best friend. No, it should be someone, a picture I like, a portrait, but not someone that I know. And I can see through the group, there's a private Facebook page with this group that they're doing it. I haven't started yet. I've been busy. But I see what people are doing, and it's beautiful. It's very exciting, and I love that. It's that same advice. Put it away from yourself and your most life and death concerns when you're pendulum dowsing and muscle testing, so that you can take the time to become accurate, and then you bring it home. Then you bring it more into your own concerns. I have to say that I'm making this video now, troubleshooting, because I've done 2 live webinars at this point for 2 different membership programs, but it's basically the content is the same at this point. Troubleshooting using the pendulum and muscle testing, and neither of those videos turned out well at all. The first one was so pixelated that I realized our internet service sucked and I needed to upgrade. So going from 25 Mbps to 250 makes a big difference. So that video is going to be replaced with this, and then that webinar video, and then the other webinar that I did, the quality of the recording, we don't know, because I forgot to hit the recording button, and so went through this whole great webinar, and I loved all the interaction, and so I hope if you were there you won't be disappointed to not get to see yourself and so forth. And this is going to replace that, and now I think I have all my settings together so that I can do a better job. And so it's like there's a learning curve with everything, and you've got to be willing to go through it. You cannot give up. Like I said earlier, the only way you're not going to be successful with pendulum dowsing or muscle testing is if you stop doing it, if you quit before you get ahead. So I'm going to go over the points. If your pendulum is not moving, it's moving too slowly, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, the answers are wrong, cleanse it again. Follow the procedures in getting started with your pendulum. Cleanse, get into a neutral space, train, retrain, and then ask some questions that you don't know the answers to. Nothing life and death. It's going to be, these can be things like, say you start out with this idea, what are we going to have for dinner? Now that is not an excellent question for muscle testing or pendulum dowsing, because it doesn't generate a yes or no answer. It's just too big. So you want to take it down. Like, okay, when I say that, instead of, using a pendulum for that, I'm going to get some thoughts. What are we going to have for dinner? You might look in your refrigerator or your freezer, and you have then a list will occur to you, like you would say to people in your home, oh, do you want this for dinner or that, because of what you've seen. Or say you're going to go out for dinner and you're looking at a variety of different ethnic foods that you might like, or different restaurants. That list that comes to you, it is a list. You can write it down, or it's not so complex. You just have it in your head. Those you can get yes or no answers to. And what you do, what has happened the moment that you do that, and that you structure a list, is that you have integrated the rational mind with the intuitive mind. So, it goes without saying we've gotten the fear mind out of the way, right? Those are the overly concerns and so forth where you can't even think straight. That's not conducive to connecting in intuition or to inner wisdom. So you get that out of the way. The rational mind is not a bad thing. It's like, okay, this is how we deal with our environment. This is where the questions are. This is what we're asking about. And then we're integrating intuition with that by using our intuition through pendulum dowsing together. And that's how we're successful in using inner wisdom to guide our lives, by bringing it all together. It's not just intuition. It's not just rational mind. We're not just locked into the physical and trying to figure things out. We're acknowledging there's a part of us that has access to so much more than our physical senses. And so that is what we are using. I believe we're now ready to move on to troubleshooting for muscle testing, because we've covered what we can do with pendulum dowsing, and when it comes to muscle testing, most of it is the same. Now, as far as cleansing and blessing goes, I mean, you could wash your hands and so forth, but that's not so much an issue when it comes to muscle testing. The kinds of things that come up there is a trust. Like people will say, I always get a yes, or I always get a no. Don't discount that, because you could be right, you could have the answers and what you think is going to happen, or whatever you're asking about, you could know. So don't discount that. But if you know that you're not getting the correct answers, what can you do? So we look at our instrument. With the pendulum, we had those steps that we follow. With muscle testing, we definitely need to be coming from that neutral mind that is oriented in love and light and truth. Our interest, just like with pendulum dowsing, should be that we're looking for answers that are in the highest good of all. Why? Because we are part of a oneness. And we're not going to get into that whole metaphysical thing right now. But if we are wanting something for ourselves and nobody else can have it, we don't want anybody else to have it, there's a problem there. That is not coming from a neutral place. If something is in our highest good, it will be in the highest good of everyone. That's just it. We do not have to step on other people, beat out other people, get into this whole competitive thing for any reason. So you may feel differently, that's fine, think about it. Okay, our instrument for muscle testing, a neutral open space. Then our instrument, here they are, our hands. We put the pinky and the thumb together on one hand. I use non-dominant hand. For me, that's my left hand. So this is what we're looking at. We have a little circle there. Then on my other hand, and you choose which is comfortable for you, I put my thumb and my index finger, my pointing finger together, the pads. Then, very simply, I'm going to insert the thumb and index finger into my pinky and thumb that have made this circle. And so this is how it looks. And then what we're doing here when we are asking a question is we're pressing, we're releasing the pressure. I want this to show up. We're pulling them apart. And we're doing that inside this circle. And we are looking for equal pressure. So you are not, again, gripping the strong arm like, I'm going to open that no matter what, or so limp, you know, that nothing is happening. You learn equal pressure. So you use the same strategies as with the pendulum, asking, making statements about things that you know, getting a yes, they stay together, these stay together. You can't push them apart with equal pressure, or a no. They come apart, and these are demonstrated in the videos that are in your classroom spaces. So you have that, or if you've purchased the video class for getting started with your pendulum, you also have this information in there. So this is what we are doing, and you just work with it. Now, when I learned to use the pendulum, and then I wanted to integrate muscle testing, and they didn't quite seem the same to me. So I spent quite some time where I would ask a question, I would get an answer, then I would pick up my pendulum, and I would get the same answer. Well, enough time went by doing that. Mostly pendulum dowsing, but integrating muscle testing here and there. I really got it. I really understood that they are working the same for me, and that's how I would like them to work for you. One of the beauties of muscle testing is even out in the world, at a store, in the street, in my car, not while I have to have my hands on the wheel. I can muscle test, and I have never had anyone come up to me and mention it. Nobody sees it. It's just not noticeable. I'll notice other people, but because it's a thing for me, so I'll be like, oh, there's someone doing that. But it's very quiet, and it's very calm, and you're not making a spectacle of yourself, if you would feel that way, like dowsing over eggplants in the produce department to make a selection. You can easily, if you need it, do this with muscle testing. And so I really, really love it for that when I'm out and about. I do use the pendulum most often when I'm at home, working on things, but not always. And, because I am a reader of the Akashic Records and doing intuitive work for other people, I love to use the pendulum under those circumstances, but I can also use pendulum dowsing or muscle testing, whichever. So I think you get my drift with all of this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I think I've covered, the areas, the troubleshooting areas that have generally come up for people and were mentioned in the 2 live webinars, which videos I just am, for the reasons I mentioned, not going to post. And I'm sure I'll get better at that as we go along too. So I hope this is really helpful for you. And, look, if you watch this and there's something in here that I haven't covered, just send me an email, drmary@theinnernowing.com, and I'll be happy to answer, add to the video, meet with you, whatever we need to do. If you're a part of this community, we really want you to be successful. So practice, get comfortable, and then in the next months, we're going to be applying these methods, pendulum dowsing and muscle testing, to incredible questions and research and solutions in our lives. It's a wonderful thing. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.